In the immediate aftermath of the little boy atomic bomb explosion on Hiroshima, the nuclear particles of uranium and plutonium spread across the atmosphere, alongside other irradiated materials such as contaminated soot, ash, and dirt. Caught in the clouds and under pressure from the heat from the firestorm underneath, these irradiated materials fell back down onto the city of Hiroshima and its surrounding area in the form of black and brown rainfall. Naturally, ingesting this rain causes the same long-term radiation poisoning that afflicted those caught in the blast, bringing calamitous effects even on those who weren't part of the initial flash of the nuclear explosion. This matter comes to form the basis of Shohei Imamura's titular Black Rain, released in 1989, by far the best movie about the atomic bombings in Japan that I have seen, and the most haunting. This is not to be confused with another Black Rain film that was also released in 1989, and that takes place within a Japanese setting. Indeed, despite releasing in the same year and bearing the same title, these two movies couldn't be any further apart. Whereas Ridley Scott's Black Rain is a bombastic American action movie about the Yakuza, Imamura's Black Rain is a muted, somber piece about the traumas of a village of Hiroshima survivors and their attempts to maintain normalcy in the aftermath. Comparing the two, they don't at all feel contemporaneous to each other, Imamura's film feeling closer to Ozu or Mizoguchi of the immediate post-war era. In fact, Imamura began his career working on the sets of films by Ozu. However, Imamura distanced himself from what he saw as the sanitized, rigid view of Japaneseness as captured by Ozu. Instead, much of his films center around provincial, often lower-class peoples, criminals, prostitutes, and other social outcasts or quote-unquote primitive peoples of Japan. This led him to many films and documentaries about the Barukamin, untouchable minorities, to the Karayuki-san prostitutes sold into sexual slavery. Black Rain, in comparison to his other works, is more reserved, but still centers around the superstitions and social stigmas of provincial Japaneseness, in contrast to the more veneer of urbane normality, even in the face of tragedy. Based on a novel, the film follows Shigematsu and Shigeko of the middle-class Shizuma family of the village, victims of the Hiroshima blast 5 years prior, as they attempt to find a husband for their niece, Yasuko. Arranging a marriage proves difficult, however, as rumors of Yasuko's presence at Hiroshima spark fears of infertility and health risks for her bourgeois suitors. As shown in the introductory sequence, Yasuko experienced the phenomenon of Black Rain after the blast of Hiroshima as she made her way back to locate her family. The sequence of Hiroshima peppered throughout the film depicting both the blast and the filial trio finding safety afterwards is brutal. Yet, amongst the corpses, the disfigurements of radiation victims, and the carnage of the city, what is most striking is the sense of trying to maintain routine. When Shigeko comes back to their house, her immediate thought is to ask the neighbors if they have cucumbers to replace the ones damaged by the blast. A man they run into relays his story of abandoning his son in a house fire, seeming to forget it seconds later to silently plead for water, and engorging himself with it. This habit of maintenance in the face of trauma informs the preceding events. The veneer of normalcy slowly unfolds over the rest of the movie, as the bomb survivors of the village begin to show symptoms of their poisoning and dwindle in numbers. The social stigma towards bomb survivors stems from both the provincialism of the village, as well as the more urban concerns of living. The rumors are spread amongst the inhabitants, which then informs the well-to-do suitors from the city who prize their legacy and familial tradition. Shigematsu too maintains ritual by going through marriage arrangements for his niece as a matter of habit. The nuclear explosion, if thought about at all, becomes a matter of shame, its survivors left to the wayside. The same family looking to marry their son to Yasuko run a successful beauty parlor in Hiroshima, yet Yasuko's presence there 5 years ago ironically worries them. Yasuko eventually opts out of marriage plans, and develops a relationship with a local man from a peasant family, Yuichi. Yuichi might be the most compelling character of the film. a former soldier in the Pacific Army riddled with PTSD that wrenches back at the mere sound of an engine. He also engages in a creative pastime, carving statues and bequeathing them to Yasuko in times of crisis. Despite being a hassle for the entire village, it is only with Yuichi that Yasuko finds freedom and solace from the contrivances of the village and the outside world as a whole. It is also in one of these bonding scenes that we find the best sequence of the movie, a harrowing revelation of Yuichi's statue carving, which depicts the soldiers of his fallen unit as they call out to him. Yet, it also shows us a different way to overcome trauma through creative impulses, rather than through simply keeping up ritual. Though, Yuichi's carving, too, is a sort of revived ritual for a new purpose. Shohei Imamura was outspoken in both his concern for individual rights and the often static nature of the Japanese, famously proclaiming that the Japanese did not change as a result of the Pacific War. They haven't changed in 1,000 years. This is not so much a cry for change or quote-unquote progress, but a pedagogical interest to explore organic Japaneseness that is expressed through some of these unchanging cultural norms, however that may be. Yet, this can show itself to contrast with one's freedom. Yasuko and Yuichi's relationship is freeing. They are able to freely discuss their experiences with each other, in contrast with her more forceful suitor with whom she shared nothing in relation. The worry of radiation poisoning and its possible oncoming symptoms are constraining, but only because social conventions make it so. Yuichi acknowledges what others refuse to, and we know a subtle development in his own mental symptoms as he becomes closer with Yasuko. There is a scene witnessed by our main family in the aftermath of the Hiroshima blast. A man is approached by a young boy, horribly deformed, who claims to be his little brother. The man doubts the boy, unable to recognize his face, voice, or anything. He demands the boy state his school and grade, yet even this isn't enough. Refusing to acknowledge the truth, he finally insists on seeing his belt as a way of identification, before finally embracing him as his brother. Beyond just the grisly deformities of the brother and many others across the film, it shows an instinct to fall back on habit in order to avoid trauma as a means of dealing with it, of trying to be free. But this does not apply to everyone, especially in the national tragedy of the atomic bombing. Irrespective of class or creed, the black rain fell on them all. In one of Shohei Imamura's last interviews, 4 years before his death, he somberly stated, "I think we've lost our way. We've got this wonderful freedom, and nobody is doing anything with it." Thank you for watching.